When Harry and Meghan appeared in their Netflix documentary, they presented a united front, polished, composed, almost perfectly in sync. But hidden inside those glossy episodes was one moment that made viewers freeze. A moment when Prince Harry, usually fiercely protective of his wife, showed something entirely different: discomfort, even embarrassment. It happened when Meghan reenacted the first time she met Queen Elizabeth II. Sitting on a couch, she launched into a story comparing the encounter to medieval times, a U.S. dinner show known for fake jousting and corny theatrics. Then, in front of millions, she dipped into an exaggerated, sweeping curtsey, her voice suddenly high and comedic, as if mocking the protocol she once struggled to understand. Harry didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He barely moved. His face tightened, his posture froze, and for the first time, the disconnect between the couple flickered into view. Because while Meghan played up the moment for humor, body language experts say Harry was quietly signaling his distress. First came the long, fixed stare at her, a silent warning. Then the glance off camera, revealing the tension he couldn't hide. It was subtle, but unmistakable. And it wasn't the only red flag. Before telling the story, Meghan lifted her hand toward Harry in a gesture experts call exclusion, signaling that the joke was hers alone, not something she needed his participation in. "Americans will understand this," she said, effectively sidelining him from the humor about his own grandmother. The only moment she did look at Harry was at the end, delivering a playful side-eye meant to cue him to laugh. Instead, he gave a weak, uncomfortable smile, a smile that looked more like self-preservation than amusement. And then came the breaking point. As Meghan reenacted her deep curtsy and sarcastically chirped, "Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty," Harry looked down and away, a deliberate act of distancing himself from the joke. Experts say this was the instant he mustered the courage to disassociate, marking the final stage of his response. He had given the warning looks, the silence signals, but Meghan pushed ahead anyway. The line had been crossed. It's a startling contrast to the image the couple often shows publicly. But it also reveals something deeper. While Meghan felt free to poke fun at royal rituals, Harry still carried the weight of those traditions and the weight of his grandmother's memory. For him, this wasn't comedy. It was a wound pressed too hard. Yet the awkward scene came at a pivotal time for the Sussexes. Their Netflix docuseries, part of a $100 million deal, became the platform where they laid out grievances against the monarchy. It became the most watched documentary of 2022, but everything that followed failed to capture the same momentum. Heart of Invictus struggled. Their Polo series fizzled. Live to Lead barely registered. And by August, their massive contract was downgraded to a first-look deal, a polite way of saying Netflix would now pick and choose, paying per project instead of handing out a blank check. In response, Meghan attempted to rebrand herself with Love, Meghan, a cooking and lifestyle series wrapped in Christmas ribbons and soft-focus lighting. Viewers, however, were brutal. Critics called it absurd, overly sweet, and painfully unaware. One reviewer gave it 0 stars, calling the show syrupy and hollow. For a woman once celebrated as a fresh force in the royal family, the reviews stung. And they signaled something many had already noticed: the Sussex media empire wasn't shining quite as brightly as it once did. Which brings us back to that moment on the couch, the deep curtsy, the strained smile, the tension spark that neither of them acknowledged. It wasn't just a joke. It was a glimpse into a boundary Meghan didn't see, and a discomfort Harry couldn't hide. A reminder that even inside their highly curated narrative, the cracks sometimes slip through. And perhaps that's why the scene struck such a nerve. It captured the exact point where two worlds collided: Meghan's Hollywood instinct for humor and performance, and Harry's deeply embedded loyalty to a family, a tradition, and a grandmother he loved. A small moment, but one that quietly asks a much larger question. When the joke is about the monarchy, does Harry laugh, or does he simply look away?